I'm going to leave my chair to do this part. Much better to stand up and do this than to sit down. What I wanted to do is provide the board and our guests, our administration, actually some of them have not seen the entire presentation. Just wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about our strategic planning process that we're getting ready to jump into, and probably each board meeting from now on, I'm going to take one component of something that we're doing that's a new initiative and spend a little bit of time explaining it to you as the board so that you have a greater understanding as we move into some of the initiatives that we're going to do now as well as we go into the fall. One of the things that we want to do is we want to make this a destination district. We want to make it a district where people say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to this North Texas area and I'm going to look for a house. Before I do, I want to make sure that the realtor says it's in Little Elm ISD. And what do we have to do that is we've got to have some strategic plans, some plans in place that cause folks to understand the direction that we're headed. And so we're going to call our plan Destination 2020 in terms of where we want to go and what we want to do as a school district. You know, you look out there, there's all kinds of signs and all kinds of ways that a person can go. And sometimes it can be kind of confusing. And some of them are very short distances and some of them are a long ways away. And so we have to put all this together to decide what direction we're going to go. Without a plan, that's exactly what we have. We're not sure where we're headed, what direction, and everybody could have a different direction. As a system, we have to know what direction we're headed and head together in that same direction. If not, we have destination unknown. And so we have people who are working very, very hard, but they don't know where they're headed. And it doesn't mean that they're not working, making plans, processes, all of that. However, if we don't have a plan, our destination is really unknown. Later, I'm going to present to you a plan called Excellence Defined, which is our continuous improvement process. And what that is a destination that is defined in terms of what excellence is. And too many times we talk about excellence, but we never define it. And I could ask the board members of the superintendent's leadership team, what does excellence mean? And I would get as many different answers as there are people. Same way with our strategic plan. We have to know where we're headed and what that destination is to be able to do it in a proper manner. So why do we do it? This is the thing we have to never forget. Everything that we do is based on our children. It's all about our children all across this district. All of our kids are all of our kids, irregardless of what school they go to, they're all of our kids. However, in the midst of that, and you've heard me say this, at least the board has and superintendent's leadership team, that I'm never going to talk about all students, because all students becomes faceless. If I say all students, it's which one. So what we have to do is take this large group of children that we're serving, and we have to take it right down to the individual child, that we can have conversations about that child right there. And what we do to represent that, this is the generic kid. The generic kid was birthed in 1991 in College Station, Texas. It's when strategic planning came into play. The state demanded that we do, planning from a level of site-based decision making. And so in some of our trainings, I was a grad assistant at the time at A&M, went around with a professor, and we came up with the generic kid. What the generic kid represents is every single child that walks in our doors. Remember for a while they were selling vegetables and they were the generics, and everything looked the same. What the generic kid is every child that enters our doors, irregardless of what their skill level is, their talent level, potential disability, potential to be great, potential to struggle, to be school dependent, meaning that we have to take care of them at school in terms of their growth, whatever their ethnicity is, whatever their financial background, we don't care. We're going to take care of every kid that they walk in the door, and we're going to take them from where they're at and take them forward. So with our strategic plan, what we're about at the end of the day is it has to be about children. Because every one of them is going to follow a path of some type. And we know there's lots of different pathways that kids can go. It's up to us to help them to see what's over that hill while we have them in our midst. Because there's going to come a time when they walk across the stage, shake somebody's hand, receive a diploma, and then they're gone. And so it's our responsibility why we have them on this path, and they're going to go on beyond things that we can see, that we do everything possible to help them succeed. And we need to define that as our strategic plan. This little cartoon, if any of you know the Knowing Doing Gap business people would know that from Pfeffer and Sutton, talking about the fact that we know a lot of stuff, but we don't always do it. And what happens, this isn't just in school districts, it's corporations also. They know a lot of things, but what they know and what they're doing, there's a gap. And there was a book written about that called The Knowing and Doing Gap from a corporation standpoint. And what happens is we let talk substitute for doing. And so everybody sits around and talks a lot, but there's not much action. And so we're looking for actionables in our plan. Let me just kind of walk through this. This is not in depth. I just want to give an overview. Our strategic planning outcomes, one of the things we'll do is come up with our core values. Core values have to lead the way. We want core values that people challenge us on, that they're willing to say, hey, wait a minute, you said you believe in communication, however, you didn't communicate very well in this circumstance. You know what, that's a win for us, because we now know that people know what our core values are and are willing to hold us accountable for. From our core values flows a vision. And I'm going to talk about vision separate in a minute. After you establish your vision and you never reach your vision, you realize it, but you never reach it. Because as soon as you get there, you can see further. And as soon as you get there, you can see further. However, what we do reach and try to maintain every day is our mission. Our mission is why we open our doors. Our vision is what do we want to become. Our mission is why we open our doors. And everybody in this organization ought to be able to tell us what the core values are, what the vision is, and the mission is. If I asked that question today, I would get one of two things: wrong answers, different answers, or blank stares. That has to be something, we'll talk more and more about that, because it's not about on a piece of paper, but it's got to be written in their hearts. And so from our mission then, this becomes the harder core part, is that we will develop goals. We'll have 3 broad-based goals, maybe 4, but probably 3. If you get any more than 3, it's the same as not having any goal at all, because you're chasing rabbits. Out of those goals, we will have strategies that are developed, and I'm going to stop there. If you look to the left, you see strategic planning team. We will have a team of folks who develop those core values, the vision, the mission, and the goals, and the strategies. And then below that, you see action plans. That's action planning teams. Those are 2 different groups of people. I'll hit on those in just a minute. The AP stand for action plans to carry out those strategies. Everything the strategic planning team does, we will bring and ask the board to approve. Everything up through strategy. Below strategy, that's a responsibility of the leadership team to carry out and make sure they get accomplished. We'll give timelines, and I'll go into that more at another date in depth. The reason we don't bring those to the board is those need to be dynamic and living, and they may be changed week to week, and so we have to have the flexibility and freedom to move through those. And we have 2 different groups of people that work on this. Let me talk about this one, because sometimes in strategic planning, this one is one that's left off. Andy Stanley says, visions are born in the soul of a man or woman who is consumed with the tension between what is and what could be. And the thing that we have to remember is we have to have a vision of what we want to become as a school district, a vision of what we want our children to be able to do and accomplish before they walk across our stage, and beyond that, and the impact that we have with that. If you're a Peter Senge fan, if you remember him from the Learning Organization, he talks about the fact that visions also have tension. See, if there's no tension, there's nothing to be released. Tension always wants to be released. So if this bottom finger, I'm going to shoot it up here. This bottom finger represents where we're at today, and the top finger represents where we want to go, there's tension. Tension gets relieved in one of 2 ways, and tension always wants to get relieved. Think about if you have a tension headache. What do you want? I want relief. That's no different in a vision for a school district. And so if we're up here, this is what we say our vision is, and this is where we're at today, we have tension. Why do we never reach a vision? Because as we move toward that vision, what happens? The tension goes away. People aren't motivated by small things. So as it relieved, we set it higher. It's relieved, we set it higher, and we become better and better. However, what we have to be careful of, if you don't have, you can have a vision or a stated vision, but if you don't have a way to get there, what happens is this: the tension gets relieved this way. The tension's relieved and everybody's comfortable and everybody says, what a great place to work. The problem is kids aren't learning and kids aren't growing. So we have to say, we're setting a vision, and it has to be a big enough vision that we're willing to work forward to reach that vision for kids. So here's the plan quickly. The core values, that will be developed. Probably look at 4 or 5 core values. I watch people write belief statements and they got a whole page of them. Well, how do you ever manage those? Do we believe lots of things? Of course. A strategic plan is not comprehensive. A strategic plan is just that, strategic, to what is the most important things to accomplish today. And so we will have our core values, we'll have our vision, our mission, our strategic goals, our strategies, the action plans we talked about earlier. And if you will go to action plans and work your way back up, start at the top. Core values frame everything that we do. The action plans, if I accomplish each of the individual action plans for a particular strategy, I will have accomplished that strategy. And if I accomplish strategies under goals, I will have accomplished the goal. And if I accomplish the goals, I will accomplish my mission. And if I accomplish my mission, I'm headed toward my vision. The strategic goal piece, what those are is we should be able to go back into our mission and identify our strategic goals. All goals are is an unbundled mission. If your mission and your goals don't match up, you're in trouble. And so what we want is a mission that's out there. We tear it apart and say, what are our goals to reach this mission? And then we're able to add that back up all the way through. And core values frames everything we do. If it's a core value, we expect to be confronted on it, as I said earlier, even internally. So for example, if I said we value resource utilization, meaning we have lots of people in our organization that have lots of talents, but we never play on those talents. We do it ourselves, we don't even ask, we violated that. So if we say we value people's opinions, then we better make sure we ask people their opinions. If we don't do that, then we need to confront whomever is violating that core value. And I'm talking about through the whole system. So teachers should confront teacher. Teacher, we have to be enough, relationships have to lead the way so that within our organization, we don't have a problem with somebody who reports to me, which is everybody that's in the organization, coming up in enough strong enough relationships that Matthew, as the deputy superintendent, say, Dr. Strike, wait a minute, that's violating one of our core values. And he should feel good enough about being able to do that. If I'm a leader who says the core values is there, and likewise, I need to confront everyone else that violates the core values. If we're not going to confront people on violating core values, then they're not a core value. We need to throw them out. The action steps will be assigned, the very bottom, the action plans, the steps in that will be assigned specific timelines, which we will share with the board. Leadership team will be responsible for carrying those out, and there's a lot more intricacies in this than I'm explaining right now. We'll have to do a cost-benefit analysis by the action planning teams to make sure that, in fact, is this worth us? It may be a good idea, but is it worth moving forward? And Grant can help us with cost-benefit analysis, right, CFO? We'll update the board every 3 months. And annual strategic planning team will come back with accountability updates that we'll bring them back once a year to look at the strategic plan that they took forward and asked the board to approve. That's an accountability piece. And so we've got every 3 months accountability back to the board for what they approve, and the strategic planning team accountability updates once a year. So here's the developmental time frame for you. Community strategic plan forums will be in March. I'm meeting Wednesday. I guess we're going to solidify those dates. We'll do 2 evening events, one at Pressbrook at that end and one at this end at Zellers. And then we'll do 1 morning event here for folks that can come in the morning. Those will consist of the community members that want to come, staff that want to come and put in their input into what they think some of these core values and some, not so much the vision, but the core values, what do they think about mission, and then what categories do they believe. We'll give them specific topics like teaching and learning. And then we'll be in these smaller groups. We'll explain the process to them. They'll be able to sit down then in these smaller groups and say, well, I think under teaching and learning, bullet, bullet, bullet. And very quick, we'll do these in about an hour. But we're going to get all that input, and we're going to take that input then back to this strategic planning team and say, here's some things that came from the community in these general areas. And we will explain to them, don't necessarily expect to see all this show up in black and white as you've written it, but all of it will be considered. Strategic planning team will meet later in the month of March. We get spring break in there, kind of throws us a little bit. That's a 2-day planning retreat. We'll have 30 to 35 members on it, and that will include community people, it will include staff, it will include campus administration, it will include superintendent's leadership team people, it will include hopefully 2 board members, and it will also include students. The best folks to have a strategic planning committee are students because you get their great input, and it's amazing to listen to the adults or watch the adults as the students speak about the reality of what they do every day in terms of being students. And I've run these before, so I know the power and impact of it. Our action teams then will take the work of the strategic planning team. Their charge is to go out and develop the action plans to accomplish the strategies. Those will meet independently April through mid-May, and it will be up to a superintendent leadership team member. We'll each have a different category. They will go out and again get a committee of folks that they will work with, including community people, including campus staff, campus administration. They'll form a smaller group of probably 5 to 10 people to work on each one of the strategies to develop the action team plan. Then we'll come back in May, late May, for a half a day, and that will be that original strategic planning team that's up there in green, the second bullet. Those folks will all come back, and the action team coordinators will come and present and say, here's the strategies you presented, here's what we think will accomplish these strategies. These are our action plans to carry it out. That strategic planning team then will bless all that, ask for changes if they need be, and what we'll do then is review that during the month of June if they suggest changes, because that team can come back and they go, well, you're kind of on, but you're off a little bit in what our gut meaning was in this one. All right, we'll go back as a strategic or as an action team and rework that. So we'll review it. Superintendent's leadership team seek board approval July of 2015. Core values, vision, mission, and goals will be posted in all buildings August of 2015, so that when folks walk into that building, all of that stuff is posted. Every building will have that vision, that mission, and those goals right in front of them, and we'll spend more time as well as our core values. And then we'll introduce or roll that out to our staff convocation in terms of what our vision, our mission is, and part of that actually comes in terms of my addressing what will be the first time I have to talk to our entire staff at one time at convocation. And we're working on convocation to do some real neat things. So that's kind of the plan. I would tell you that leadership begins when a mission is revealed that captures you. That most people are pretty dead about things until they get fired up about something and they have a mission that they want to accomplish. And one of the things that we really will push here and an expectation is we'll be servant leaders. And you can't be a servant leader without a passion for the mission. And so we have to know what is our mission every day and what is our charge. That will be posted, like I said, in all of our buildings. It will be posted in this building. The mission will be a part of every discussion that we have in our superintendent's leadership team. In fact, they'll get a copy of the mission that's opaque that they will lay over any decision that we're going to make, and I'll say, I want you to look at that decision through our mission. And when we start to do that, you're going to see some amazing things happen for our children and for our kids, because we're going to have direction. We've got a separate piece. We know we've got the facilities plan, which will be a separate document that Rod Reeves is going to be heading up on that. So that's where we're headed with this. We're excited about it. I'm excited about it. And we're going to involve a lot of people. They'll have a lot of input, including our children at our higher levels. And we're going to come back to you with a plan that I think that you will feel very good about us presenting to you in July and seeking your approval so that we can move forward in terms of implementation and sharing that plan with the rest of our staff. So just really wanted to lay that out because we're getting ready to move on it, and we're going to move pretty quick. Typically, this is a little quicker than what I would like, but I've done it before, so I know we can get it done. Just going to put people under pressure to accomplish some of the things, but we can get it done because we've got, and I'm going to say this again in front of the board and any guests that are here, from campuses to our central office staff, our curriculum coordinators, our leadership team, I'm telling you, the people are in place to do it. And as soon as we get the leadership and get it going in the processes, there's a great group of people in this district. And with the board's blessings and support, we're going to move forward, and there's going to be some great things happening for kids over the next few years. So it's not overnight, it's not magic, but it will happen, and you'll see changes starting to happen. As I go out and meet with all the faculties, I'm very impressed with even some of the feedback emails I get and seeing where people are at. And we're going to push people more than they've ever been pushed. We're going to provide resources and support to do it, and this is part of that. So thank you for your time. This is going to make a difference for our kids, and that's what it's about. So, thank you.
Question for you, sir. I think people can hear me regardless. Great information. I absolutely agree that we need as much involvement in this process as possible. My initial reaction is it seems like the board's in the passenger seat with this endeavor, that the board's not driving this, that as a board, we talk about 3 things that boards are responsible for. 1, hiring the superintendent, 2, setting policy, and 3, managing a budget. Those are kind of the things you hear, from a textbook perspective, but I think it's also the responsibility of the board to be driving what those core values are, the mission and the vision. It just seems like we're in the passenger seat in this, and that we're not doing our job. While we'll be able to approve it, we're not going to see this until July. I think we should be more involved, and I realize that you're talking about 2 board members within these committees and so forth, but I think the board should have approval at each of those major steps, being these are the core values, because if you go down the road of these are the core values, vision, mission, strategic goals, you bring that to us in July, and we balk at the core values, everything that you've done after that point, I'm not saying it's throwaway, but it's not really engaging the board. So help me understand.
And that's fine. If you want to go that route, be more than happy to turn it over and make it a board plan. You're talking at least another year before that happens. That's another year we lose kids that don't have the ability to grow because of what we're going to do. And I understand what you're saying. Those 3 things at the interpretive level, at the governance level, the 3 things you just talked about, the interpretive level is for us to take those things, that policy, those directions, the budget. The budget approval comes when we bring the strategic plan. None of that is you're not approving any money. What you're approving is the ideas behind it, and you can certainly go that route if you choose to go that way.
And I guess
that's a board decision. Is what I'm saying.
And you bring up a good point, because I guess I really should have directed that half at you and half at the board. Are there any of the board members that have concern that we're turning this whole thing over? Because it's us as the board that make the decision. So I probably shouldn't have directed that directly at you. It's like, what do the board members feel in this regard of turning this whole thing over?
So here's my personal thought on this. Like I say, our responsibility is policy and procedures, make sure that the financial aspects are there. But a really big part of understanding how our district is going, where it's going, is buy-in from the community and what's going on. One of the things that happens to many districts, that happens in the past, is the fact that community has little input on what's happening. And the board driving every single aspect of what's happening inside the district. And we're not educators. We're here for policy and procedures. We're here to do some different things in that regard. So I think coming to the board and asking for our approval on those particular aspects, I think it's the right direction. I do not believe that the board is the main body that says these are the core values we're going to follow when we don't even know what that is if we come up with them ourselves. It is incumbent on us to listen to what the people who are going to be living those core values every single day, being involved, what they assume and perceive is important. And then us following those and helping you guys, removing any impediments to you guys being successful in those regards. And that's a little bit different from what Ms. Cooper is probably saying, but that's my own personal take. It is the incumbent of us as a board to help you guys be successful and improve in all the directions that you have. So personally, this is my own personal belief. This is the first time we've had a strategic planning happen in a district like this. So it may be a little bit uncomfortable because people haven't seen it like this. They haven't seen it go through this process.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I disagree. I was on the strategic planning committee before I ever joined the board as a parent. So this happened years ago. I mean, this is my 6th year, so it did happen. It's not like it's new. And I was there as a parent. We had community members, we had staff members. So this is what the community, maybe not to the same, it was a longer drawn out process. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, I apologize. I just wanted to make that clear that this isn't new.
So,
the community is familiar. So I do agree, you have to have the community input, you have to have the staff input, you have to have the parents, and you have to have the board. I think to address Cooper's decision, or Cooper's concern, I think maybe free it up where if you want more than 2 members of the board, allow more than 2 members to be present, we just would have to post it if, depending on how many members would be.
yeah,
And I would go a different model if we're going to do that. And if there is a strategic plan, I've not seen it, so it must be in a drawer somewhere. If we're going to do that, then I will recommend you hire a consultant for $60,000 to $70,000 and have the consultant run it and take administration out of it, would be my recommendation.
For my 2 cents, I'm going to throw something out here. The strategic plan that we had was several years ago, and I do actually remember it. It's been a very long time for the process. I definitely want the community, and kind of what Cooper was saying, I don't want to, because unfortunately, I don't know how much time I could volunteer myself, but I definitely don't want to be out of the loop. And I know that we have our weekly updates, and so once you guys meet some of these milestones on the weekly updates, I myself would actually appreciate where you're at, what we've got started, because if I have questions or I see things going and I don't understand why, maybe because the community was really strong on this idea, I would love to know that up front. And if we see something that as a board we disagree with or have questions on, we can speak up before July or the time frame that you had. But like Stephanie said, that if we want to have more, I don't know that I could provide more time, 2 of us. That way we can keep it from
Well,
having.
I think I took a long way in getting there as I was developing my thoughts as I was talking. I think for me, it's really about, I think the board, we need more formal checkoffs at, these are the core values. More formal board checkoffs that this is the vision before you go on to the next step. I think I took a long way in getting there,
Sure.
but for me, I would feel more comfortable.
And we'll have to revise the timeline then, and I'll bring it to you probably in December and that would be the only reason that it's just going to be a slower process, and we'd have to do that. And whatever the board wants, that's what you all get. But
I do not want to slow the process.
Personally, I don't want to slow
I
the
don't want to
process
slow the
down.
process. I just want to be more in the loop, a little bit more.
We have to do good things for kids, and we've got to have a plan. And
We need to get
all I can
started.
say is, if you want to look at the data, we got to have a plan.
I would rather have this going into August of next year, August of this year, of knowing that we have a strategic plan, because as we get through the budgeting process, we get through some of these other processes, it's going to be important that we allow and be able to focus on what we need to do as a board, so we have that in place. So me personally, I don't want to slow down the process. I think you've laid out an idea, a plan of the way things are operating, and I think for me, this is my point, I think the plan and thought is really well thought out, and direction is really something that helps out. And so I would be for the plan as we stand it. But like I say, additional gates, just a couple of additional gates, and maybe having some more board input would probably be an important aspect. And the board itself would have its own. I mean, we have our own board goals. We sent out an email here 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was, asking for feedback for what the goals would be for the year. And so we'll be in our term, and as well as our board retreat, so we'll have a lot of that stuff in our priorities too. So.
But how do we communicate those goals, which we haven't aligned on, we've just sent some email feedback, how do we communicate those goals in this process?
I think what we do is once we get our put in, because a lot of the differences are going to be what we are seeing and what they're seeing, and then aligning both of those. As we go through this process, we go through our retreats, we all integrate and talk, we communicate, we discuss it, say, hey, these are some of the things we're aligned. And they're coming back to us as it is, so we can talk about some of those things that are important. Because like I say, it's all about communication, us working together and trying to figure out what's going on. So I don't see there's a misalignment there. I think there's an opportunity for all of us to work together and use the input we're seeing from the community, use the input we're seeing from the board to get us to where we need to be.
So based on his timeline, when are we getting together as a board to formally define what our board goals are?
I think that's something we should discuss when that's going to happen, because we just got this information available to us. So I think we should talk about that when our goals and our timelines. We originally talked about doing a board retreat, which was probably after the teammate training. Maybe we move that timeline up for us, so we can talk about what are some of the things that are important to us, and then we roll that in. So I think there are many opportunities for us to work together in this right thing.
So, again, your decision. I'll go whatever direction you want to go. It's just that if it is, then I'm going to step back and ask us to hire a strategic planning person.
Yeah, I think this is my own personal work. And I think you're heading in the right direction. I think we should, personally, I don't want to see the timeline set. I want to see us move on certain things, because as we move further on, we move further items into the year, then that timeline starts to impact our schools, it starts to impact other things. But the board that way.
I think so. For me, as I look at it, outline the core values, vision, mission, strategic goals, strategies, action plans, right? Like how it all looks. I'd like to see a timeline, right? What does that look like in a timeline? So if you develop core values, will we see the core values before the vision is designed? And then will we see the
two-day retreat is when they will develop that package.
that whole package? So for me, give a brother a microphone. So for me, I think it's, I don't know what it would look like, Dr. Strike, but I would like to be there when core values are designed. And I don't have to participate. I can be a fly on the wall. I can be an inactive participant, but that is something I would like to see take place as a board member, because I think that guides my actions. I believe you're right, community defines a lot, but at the end of the day, we enforce whatever happens, and we drive whatever happens. So I would like to be there for that piece. I was a part of the strategic planning the last time, so it was like 5 years ago. But that was a dynamic process that we did all that work in a couple of days, and then it went over time. But yeah, just to be there, to see that the core values are designed, then the vision, then the mission. And after that, hey, I get it. Goals, that's you and your team, that it's already been defined. So yeah, I'm not sure what it looks like, 2 people versus 7 versus 5 versus 6, but I think the board needs to be there with a greater representation, I guess, to see the process and see what's coming out of from the community and the students and faculty and staff.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, the board will recess into closed meeting in the conference room as permitted by Texas Open Meeting Act 551.074 and 551.071, as permitted by Texas Education Code. At 7:30.